everybody. Welcome.
The purple twins.
I know, it's so good. We showed up this morning and we're like, of course we are wearing exactly the same color scheme.
Of course. And the purple frequency.
Yeah. So this is another episode of Yes To, and I have with me one of my favorite people in the world, Isabelle Tierney. She's helped me through so much in my life and just so much of the wisdom that I have. She is the foundation for that. So
I love that.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to expose you all to her work today. She is a coach and a teacher, and she speaks about so many different topics. And today we're going to be talking about yes to creating heaven on earth for spiritual realists. So what exactly is heaven on earth, and how is that possible, and how can we create it as spiritual realists? So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. I love that you said that you use me as your foundation, because to me, the way you have expanded since I first met you and the way you create impact in the world, like to consider that maybe I was one of the foundational pieces, like I'm like, oh my God, that's so amazing. So I'm by training, I'm a licensed therapist. But really over the last few years, I've shifted out of being a therapist, and I'm now a coach. I call myself a quantum leap coach, and I'm a transformational leader. So I do speaking all over the world these days on this specific thing that you guys are going to learn today. And that literally is about how the hell do we create heaven on earth, but not in a foofy way. And that's why when my friend Rhonda came up with the word spiritual realist, she shared I was like, that's it. Because, often when people hear heaven on earth, it's like we think it's going to be like, we're going to be like floating in the clouds. And I'm like, no, because I went through so much trauma in my childhood and so much shit, I just decided all my life I have spent like, how do I live this life, this human life, in a way that's actually sustainably feels good and not either out of my body, right, in the clouds, or like completely grounded in reality so much that I don't see that there's a wider world. And so spiritual realism is like, if you think of it as a continuum of people who are only spiritual and then people who are only realists, we merge the two and we use spirit and science. Right? Heaven and earth, humanity and spirituality. So,
wow, awesome.
Yeah.
So what is heaven on earth? And how do we
that little tiny question.
I know.
So one of my favorite things in the world is I have created this scale that I want to share with you guys, because it's going to explain what heaven on earth is, all right? So if you take a look at that, I want to make sure that you guys see it in both screens. So you see this scale. So just remember this, because I'm not going to be holding it the whole time. It's like a traffic light, and it's a triangle shape. And you'll notice that at the bottom is the green zone, at the top is the red zone, and then in the middle is a yellow zone. So that chart is literally a mirror of who we are as human beings and what we can access at any time. So many of us live primarily in the stress response, right? That's the red zone. That's really low frequency. It hurts because our bodies think we are in danger. And so make us go into fight, flight, or freeze, right? That's the only choice you get in the stress response. When you are in the relaxation response, your body thinks you're safe. And every state of being you long for lives in that one physiological response, the relaxation response. So much so that Dr. Andrew Weil called it the God response. So heaven on earth is your capacity to live sustainably in that green zone, in the relaxation response, and to learn how to do your emotions from there, your thoughts from there, your actions from there. And then life is like, and it's not like, I only feel happy. No, you feel everything, but you do it in a way that's grounded and uplifted at the same time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
That does make sense. And if heaven on earth is possible, then that means that hell on earth is also possible. And it sounds like most of us are living there in that red zone. So,
okay, I got to say that. So when I discovered Dr. Andrew Weil said that the green zone was the God response, I went to meditate. I was like, well, then what's the red zone? Do you know what the red zone is?
What?
The separation response. Because literally, when you're in the stress response, this is crucial for you guys to know. The two sides of our brain are not communicating with each other, the right and left side of our brain. So we literally can only see the world from a dualistic split place. When you're in the green zone, the two sides of your brain are completely talking to each other. And literally, in those theta, delta waves, we see unity. So only in the green zone can you see unity. When you're in the red zone, you can only see the other as the enemy. In the world is dualistic. So it's competition, it's war, it's aggression, because I gotta kill you because you're my enemy. That's the only way you can see. I call them red zone lenses or green zone lenses. It makes it really easy to remember.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah, literally hell on earth is
hell
the belief
on earth.
In separation, is the belief that there's something other than me out there that's out of my control, that I have to defend myself against, that I have to protect myself against. And then heaven on earth is
you believe that we are one, and so whatever is done onto me is done onto you. Like for me, when I'm in that green zone, I feel compassion, I feel inspiration, I feel peace, I feel calm, I feel joy, I feel ease. Insights, right? Intuition comes in the green zone, aha moments, like the desire to do right by others, like everything we want lives in that green zone. And so if you remember that scale, right? Like if you guys, whoever is live right now, ask yourself or on replay, where do you live at on that scale? Let me show you again, right? If you look at the scale, if you look here on this side, there's number 1 to 10. And so ask yourself, where do I live on that feel good scale? And so what would your number be? Like kind of homeostatically, where do you live on that feel good scale? 1 being red zone, 10 green zone.
I think I probably live at like a 7. And I've worked my way up from a 3.
That's exactly my numbers. I lived at a 2 or 3 most of my life. Exactly. And now I say it's like an 8, 8.5.
Wow.
Right? So this work teaches you to, in the moment, shift out of that stress response into the relaxation response, and sustainably as well. Because if you wake up and you are right at that yellow zone, close to the red zone, it's not going to take much, like your partner saying, hey, honey, can you empty the dishwasher, or being stuck in traffic, and boom, you're in the red zone and you are in trouble, right? Because once we're in the red zone, our rational brain gets kidnapped. We see the other as the enemy, and our responses are outdated. And they're literally there to kill you or to run away from you. That's the only thing you can do when you're in the red zone.
Yeah. So when we catch ourselves in the red zone, what do we do?
So first of all, recognize the signals of the red zone. So they're fight, flight, or freeze signals, right? So physiologically, rapid heart rate, clenched jaw, like what your body's doing is trying to make sure you can fight, flight, or freeze. So the heart is trying to push all the energy out to your limbs, right? Then it's racing thoughts, right? Your body thinks you're in danger. It's like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? You know, so when you have those racing thoughts, we're talking about body image and food, or you're worrying about your partner, or about money, or about your friend. That's because you're in the red zone and your body thinks you're in danger. Of course, it's going to give you racing thoughts. Yep. So racing thoughts, emotions like anxiety, frustration, irritation. So number 1, there are 3 steps. Notice where you're at. Number 2, stop and breathe. And I know that sounds so simplistic, but literally breathing deep abdominal breath is the single most effective way to bring us to that green zone, scientifically proven. Because it does the opposite of what your body's trying to do to get you to fight, flight, or freeze, right? Which is shallow, rapid breathing. And then third step is you implement what I call a feel good habit. So you shift into, I'm going to take a breath. Okay, maybe I'm going to call a friend to reconnect myself. Maybe I'm going to meditate. Maybe I'm going to journal. Maybe I'm going to go garden, whatever your feel-good habits are. And in the course, we help you create your feel-good habits so that you have them at your disposal like that. They're habits that bring you to the green zone.
The course, meaning the course that you're leading.
Yes, the course that I'm leading. Yeah, exactly. That's starting this week, actually. So it was so perfect. You and I have been trying to figure out a time to talk, and it turned out perfect. Yeah. So 3 steps, right? Track your feel-good level. Where are you at? If you're in the red zone, do not believe anything you see. Do not believe, like if your partner, if you like, you know that experience, have you ever had that with your partner where one minute you're like, oh my God, I love them so much. And then the next minute you can't even stand the way they chew or they breathe. That's red zone, right? Or the same thing, like you wake up and you feel really confident about yourself, about the way you look maybe, and then you eat too much food and then you suddenly think you're the fattest person in the world. That's red zone, right? So red zone distorts everything.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love most about, since you've taught me this, is that when I catch myself in the red zone, it's like, oh my God, I don't have to deal with the thoughts. Like I don't have to react to them. I don't have to respond to them. This is just the
lens, just the distorted lens.
It's just, you know, that each zone is a frequency, and
we have a cat that's putting a lot of hair on Brandy.
And it's just like, it literally, I love that you call it heaven on earth, because it actually is like a different place that you go to. Like you're just sitting here, but as soon as you activate your relaxation response, you're living in a different world.
Oh my God, I love that you say that. Because it's not, I talk about the red zone, I tell them like either like lenses or channels, like TV channels, right? So the red zone channel is like the Jerry Springer channel, right? And then like the green zone channel is like one of the Oprah channels. You remember Touched by an Angel or Saved by an Angel? Like it was what. So if you are in the Jerry Springer show, you're not going to come in there and try to heal everybody, right? It doesn't work. The show is made to have fighting and drama. So what you do is you turn off that channel and you bring your attention to a green zone channel. And the same world.
Rather than getting wrapped up in the channel and thinking, oh my gosh, we got to fix this channel.
That's
like,
it.
No, just change the channel.
Just change. And so, you know, that's why meditation, you know, when you do like mindfulness meditation and they ask you to focus on your breath, and then you start suddenly thinking about the groceries and you're like, oh my God, I'm thinking about the groceries. No, you just gently shift your attention back to your breath. So this is what we're talking about. But having the awareness that you're in the red zone, you don't go, oh shit, now I'm in the red zone. What am I going to do? It's like, oh wait, let me shift into another frequency. And it's literally a completely different world.
But what most of us do is we realize, oh shit, I'm in hell. I'm in hell. I'm afraid now. Now I'm scared, and now I hate this, and now I'm resistant to it. And then we just get ourselves further into the red zone. Whereas it's like, oh, I'm in hell on earth. Okay, it doesn't have, I don't have to live here.
It's not real, it's distorted anyway.
This is just illusion. So I don't need to be afraid, I don't need to react to this. I can just activate heaven on earth, which is always exists somewhere in my body.
Always, that's the thing. It always, so remember that feel good scale? That's you. Those are all what's possible for you at any moment. I used to think you could only be in one place or the other, but actually it's in that field, the quantum field, right? I love to use science. That's why we're spiritual realists. In the quantum field, all these frequencies exist. We get to choose which ones we want to live at. And you said something really important. When you're in the red zone, sometimes you can't get out, right? There are times I can't get out. But if I know that I'm there, and I bring curiosity. Wow, look, so yesterday we decided I was going to share a really vulnerable piece with you guys. So yesterday, Brandy kept not returning my texts about whether we were doing this today or not. And so I left her a voice message saying, you really suck at texting. And then like 2 hours later, I was like, oh shit, was that totally rude that I did that? And so then I noticed myself go into the red zone of, oh my God, that was really rude. Brandy's going to think I'm a bitch now. She's going to talk about me to everybody that we know in common, and I'm going to be ostracized. And I was talking to Brian. I was like, oh, wow, I just went into the red zone, right? The biggest fear in the red zone, the survival, is we're going to be kicked out of the herd. That is the biggest punishment you can do in the red zone. So that's why all of us do so many things to belong, because it's a survival mechanism to belong. If we're kicked out, we die. Right? If you're a horse, you get kicked out, you die. And so I just noticed, and I was in the red zone, and I couldn't get out because I didn't have information yet that I was wrong. But I was like, wow, look at the way I think. My whole world was fall apart from one thought. I was rude maybe to Brandy. And so I brought curiosity. And curiosity is a green zone state of being. So the moment just bringing curiosity, that already starts shifting you.
And I'm just remembering that when I did, because I was up in the mountains, I didn't have signal. And when I came back down and realized that I'd missed all these texts from you, I had that red zone reaction of like, oh no, Isabelle's not going to like me anymore. She's going to think I'm irresponsible and not want to work with me. And so,
right. So that's the thing, guys. In the red zone, there are physiological signals, emotion, right? Like a tight jaw, emotional symptoms, anxiety, frustration, reactivity, mental signals like obsessive thinking, racing thoughts, and core beliefs, right? I'm not good enough. I have to do this all alone. Like whatever they are, I won't be liked. I will be kicked out. I don't belong. So just like in the green zone, there all these signals of I am love, I am everything, the world is benevolent. Like, oh my God, the green zone, like just even saying the green zone beliefs, like my whole body just melts.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm really like viscerally experiencing these two zones and what they look like for me. For me, red zone is I'm overwhelmed. There's way too much. I'm so behind. I need to fix everything. Everything's wrong. Like I have to start depriving myself of all the things that I love.
Yes.
Like I got too complacent. Like now I need to just like backpedal on everything and I need to start withholding from myself.
Right. And
like
listen to her voice, right? That's one of the signals of the red zone. What are you noticing about your voice? Tone, speed, like I don't want to cry, right?
Yeah.
But you hear how fast you're speaking, right?
Yeah.
Often we get louder, like our rhythm becomes really fast.
Yeah.
So how did that feel? Like I literally feel that in my body when you just did that because I resonate so much and it's so painful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like this like massive constriction of energy.
Like exactly.
It wants to fold into itself.
Right? And red zone, right? Do you guys see that's the whole point of it being a triangle? Is because literally that's how it feels. Like I love this scale because it actually shows the constriction. And then that's why when we're like that, then we can either discharge then emotions at others, right? Or we take them against ourselves. But there's like there's all this energy that's meant to make us fight, flight, or freeze from a bear. Yeah. That's right here. Yeah. Because you got triggered by something small, but it's that same powerful energy that gets triggered. Yeah. So we have to learn to recognize it and manage it. Yeah. And use it well.
And I want to point to something also here because I think that our society inundates us with this messaging that we're supposed to live in red zone, and that if we don't live in red zone, then we're selfish and we're complacent. Weak. We're not being productive. We're weak. We're weak. And lazy. Especially women too. Like I think society fears the power that we have if we live from green zone.
Oh, I really wasn't expecting that last sentence from you. So let me back up for the first part that you said and then to the second part. I used to call my course, last year I ran it live. This year it's all pre-recorded. I used to call it the curse of the modern superwoman, right? That this is the curse. We're supposed to have the 2 children, the job. You know, it's like the girl, you know, the commercial of the girl that gets out of a car in New York City with her briefcase and she's holding a baby in her arms and she's got it all together. And who the frick does that? Yeah. We all, like, how many women do you and I know who have adrenal exhaustion? That is from living in that red zone all the time. Stress is fine temporarily, right? We're supposed to go hunt a bear, come back and relax. Yeah. None of us do that when they're all the time. And then women wonder why they don't want physical intimacy with their partners, right? Why they're depleted and exhausted all the time. It's because they're constantly trying to uphold these, these expectations that we have that are ridiculous. Now, I want to go to part 2. If we were allowing ourselves to be in the green zone, you said, the world might be a little scared about our power. I want to know more about what you specifically say about that.
Yeah. Well, I've been really interested lately in this idea that dieting is a political sedative for women. It's like the most, this kitty is so intuitive. It's like the best way that the group in power has figured out to keep the current patriarchy in place without having to overtly oppress us because we're doing ourselves. It. And I think that like dieting is a good example, but it's so much bigger than that. It's really telling us that we're supposed to live in red zone. where red zone is, like you said, it's competing with each other, comparing ourselves to each other,
That's
judging
right.
ourselves,
That's
and
right.
living in fear.
That's
and
right.
we're told that we're supposed to, I mean, just looking at the way that we're told to live in fear of our appetites, right? Like if you're, because the messaging is, if you're not afraid of your appetite, then it's going to consume you. And we've been told that because that's what keeps us in red zone, and that's what keeps us separated and isolated. And if we lived in green zone, if we lived from our desires, if we lived in relaxation, then we would come together and we would demand change.
Yes.
We would demand equality. We would demand that we get needs met. We would demand that there's space for the feminine to exist in our society. That
I love that.
And in leadership. And yeah, so.
You know, the red zone, right? The reason that the red zone gets us with food and body image is we get told think survival again, right? Always bring everything to survival. If I'm thin enough, I belong. I will be loved. So once again, and I learned this because, you know, I had a 30-year eating disorder. And when I started taking my eating disorder through the lens of the feel-good scale, I was like, oh, we are taught from the time we're very little that if we're pretty enough and thin enough, we belong, we're popular, right? It starts by the time we're like in middle school.
Yeah.
And that if we're not, we literally get ostracized. I mean, we literally get bullied, ostracized if we don't have the right size. So then your system learns, oh, heavy body means I'm in danger, means I get kicked out, means I'm going to die. So we start obsessing. Of course, it's so brilliant. We're told it's dangerous to be fat or not perfect. Yeah, we're not perfect. And so we then start constricting, and living in the red zone with our food and our body image. And then we tell ourselves, of course, our appetites will be humongous because we're living like this and we're like not letting our appetites be. And so it takes time for us to learn that actually when we live in the green zone, when we create space, our appetites are completely appropriate.
Yeah.
Right? They're only either too big or too small because we're in the red zone. So we first have to learn to trust that. And we have to learn, like when I work with my body these days, I think of my body as a sacred consciousness. So I even think body image and that whole thing means nothing. We don't forget body image. That still means I'm mental. I mean, I'm looking at my image mentally. I want to teach people that every cell in your body is sacred because that's the green zone lens, right? The green zone lens makes you see the whole world as sacred, including your body. Yeah. So I don't have to be like, I really like my left boob and my right breast. Who cares? Right? Like it's still image. Like, can we find a different way to connect to our bodies? Yeah. And from the green zone, we can. And then we don't spend all our time focusing on our image and on what we eat.
I love that. Body consciousness or body sacred.
You're seeing the whole world becomes sacred in the green zone. Everything, the cat, the butterfly, the rain, the anger, even the difficult emotions, they become sacred.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I think another piece to this too is again, as women, we've been taught that our desires are wrong and sinful and bad. And this comes back to how we've been taught to relate to our sexuality as well, I think, and that we're not supposed to experience pleasure. And that, you know, up until recently, pleasure was not a function of sexuality for women. It wasn't supposed to be. It was, you know, like women were supposed to have sex for their country, for God, it was like their duty, you know, rather
I didn't think about it like that. Okay.
And so there's just so much shame around pleasure, but pleasure is not just connected to sexuality, right? It's everything. And so I think we have trouble allowing life to feel good because we've been told that we're not supposed to let life feel good and that it's dirty and it's bad and it's wrong to let life feel good.
It's so good. So I have 8 modules in the course, and the 3rd module is probably my favorite, although I say that about every module. We look at, first of all, what's your homeostatic level, and then we look, right, where do you live at sustainably? Yeah. And then we look at where did you learn that? And where did you learn that in your childhood? Like I grew up where you were not allowed to experience pleasure. Everybody was so miserable that if you felt good, I got punished, right? And I only learned that I had to be angry and depressed, right? And then I asked, and in your current environment, What are you learning about feeling good? Because so often, you know, we run into each other. How are you, Brandy? Oh, I'm so stressed. Yeah, me too. And we deify success and stress.
Totally.
And the whole course teaches you how to start allowing yourself pleasure, allowing yourself, I just want to cry, like allowing yourself to feel good. Because when we have healthy pleasure, two things happen. One is we don't have to do distorted pleasure, right? We're like, oh, like I used to be like so perfect in the front, like people thought I was so perfect. I was binging and purging 5 times a day because I had to find my pleasure somewhere, right? So A, we become responsible with our pleasure. And B, that gives permission to others too to have pleasure. And pleasure and desire, when it's done from the green zone, is amazing. It's who we are. Our souls are bliss. So can we find a healthy way to connect to that bliss without distorting it through restriction or deprivation or shame or guilt? Make sense?
Totally. And now that you just mentioned those emotions, how do we deal with these difficult emotions when we're in the green zone? Can we allow space for difficult emotions in the green zone?
Well, you just said it. That was so perfect. So think about the way people usually do difficult emotions, right? They do it, we're literally wired biologically that when we have difficult emotions, we're supposed to constrict because that means we're in danger. So first of all, we have to rewire our limbic brain to start knowing that we don't have to immediately go into the stress response when we have difficult emotions. Secondly, we have core beliefs about difficult emotions. We were taught anger is bad, sadness weak. So we have to like learn to work with beliefs about emotions. So we do all that in the course. But the third one is my favorite. When, let's say, pick an emotion that you struggle with. That's a difficult emotion that's hard for you to be with.
Overwhelm, anxiety.
It's not really an anxiety. All right. So over the thought about being overwhelmed leads you to anxiety. Okay, great. So anxiety is meant to tell you there's danger. So it's supposed to send you into the red zone. But now you understand you don't need to do that anymore because you're not in danger. So learn to work with the sensations of the emotion and not the emotion itself. So what are the sensations of anxiety?
Constriction. There's like this very distinct, that's hard to describe, sensation that I get right here.
Right here is the belly. What you're showing. Okay.
In my belly, it's almost like almost like a coldness.
Ooh.
And like zzz.
Yeah, it's almost like electrical.
A cold electricity in my stomach, and my heart feels tense.
So did you see her face, right? How uncomfortable it is, right, to be with those emotions. So when you learn to work with them as sensations, if I were to say to you, Brandy, open to that buzzing, to the discomfort, to the tightness, can you see, first of all, how much easier that would be than, oh my God, I have anxiety, right? So sensations are energy in motion. Emotion is energy in motion. So the way I see sensations and energy in motion is life force moving through me. So I say that's God moving through me. And so as I start feeling the most difficult emotions, grief, rage, anger, like I even feel it now, the gratitude of it, because I've just been through some stuff that made me feel all that. I open into the green zone. I go, oh my God, God is moving through me. So whatever you guys call it, source, God, life force, whatever sacred thing it is, you open to the sensation and you imagine that it's God moving through you in energy form. And then you stop splitting that they're good and bad emotions, right? When bliss moves through you, that has a specific set of sensations. God moving through you. When anxiety moves through you, those are specific sensations. One of my favorite metaphors is imagining ourselves like a riverbed through which water, life force, is always moving through. So if you constrict against a difficult emotion, what happens to that riverbed, right? If you constrict that riverbed, what happens to that flow?
Like floods.
Exactly, right? So green red zone, when you constrict that riverbed, but when you open, then what happens to that torrent of emotions? It can move. So that's the way you do it. You work with sensations, and if you want, right, that's a little extra trick that I do. I think of them as sacred. I think of them as God moving through me, and then it's like wow. Yeah. Instead of like, oh yeah, here are sensations, it elevates them to allow all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't restrict, because why would I not want God to move through me? And then, you know, that whole story we had, we're alone. You know, those days you think you're alone. How can you be alone? Energy's always moving through you. God is always moving through you.
I love that.
Yeah, I want to know how that lands.
Yeah, and I think we have this belief that heaven on earth must look like the absence of difficult private experiences. But if we think that, then we're thinking that there's something besides heaven on earth, that there's something besides God, right? Which is coming from illusion, coming from separation, which is hell. So if you're believing that you need to rid yourself of all difficult experiences before you can live in heaven on earth, then you're keeping yourself in hell. You're keeping yourself in separation.
Yes. And because there's a split, right, between what's good and what's bad.
Right, exactly. Right? And as soon as you invite all that in, then everything becomes sacred. And there's nothing to fear, there's nothing to resist, and everything is God.
I'm sorry. May I just say how much I loved having this conversation with you, because you're like, you ride right along with me and take it deeper. Right. Exactly. And so to me, one of the I'm going to be really rude for a moment, but one of the scariest people in the world are the people who spiritually bypass. And so who say, I don't feel anger. I don't feel sadness because I'm evolved. But, you know, you can feel what's happening actually behind them, and it usually comes out in distorted ways. Like, I get really passionate about teaching that heaven on earth is, you know, spiritual beings having a human experience, right? That's the Teilhard de Chardin quote. We're not supposed to be in soul form. If not, we wouldn't be here. We can come here and take what seems to be separate or bad and actually transform it into just as much love. There's a quote I read a bunch of years ago that took me years to understand, and it says, saints see no evil. Saints see no evil because they have the green zone lens on. So it doesn't mean you're not responsible for what you do. It doesn't mean they aren't people who are doing incredibly painful, irresponsible things, but you see them from the eyes of love, just as I imagine if I had a story about God, that God sees them. And you don't judge, because our judging is red zone, right? Compete. That's how wars start. It's from thinking, you're not good, I'm good, so I have the right to kill you. So if I say, well, you're not good because you try to kill me, well, now I'm in red zone too. I'm no different. Right. But if I say, wow, that person is a lot of suffering, right action comes from that much more cleanly than the action that comes when I think you are evil. Yep. Right?
Yeah. I love the quote, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So if we're seeing with eyes of love, then everything is love. That doesn't mean that we lose discernment. That doesn't mean that we can't distinguish between what is serving life and what's not serving life and act accordingly.
And right, the Buddhists call it right action, and I love that. Yeah. Like when you're in the red zone, do not, guys, if you're getting anything from this live, don't trust what happens to you, what you think, what you feel, what you want to do in the red zone. All our habits, our painful habits, come from red zone, all of them. And number two, don't take action from the red zone, ever, with your partner, with your habits, at work. It's just say, oh, I'm in the red zone, hold on. And if you're with your partner, for example, say, hey, baby, I need 10 minutes. Yeah. And you go outside and you do 10 zone. Or like if you're at work, you go to the bathroom, you breathe, you come into a feel-good habit, like just like you can skip a little bit or whatever it is, like the bathroom that you can do, I've done that. Yeah. And then you come back into the green zone. So don't argue with your partner in the red zone. Don't come up with solutions in the red zone. Don't work from the red zone, right? Because even if you, like people like you and I imagine, we're really smart, right? So we can work from the red zone, right? Like the doing. But it's going to be like 1% of actually what we can create than what's possible in the green zone. Yeah. Because we're going to be using mostly our minds and not our souls.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love that. Like, oh my gosh, I want everybody on the planet to hear this, because when we're in red zone tells us that we need to make life feel worse. Right?
Say more.
Like if I'm in red zone and body image is just easy for me to relate to here. So if I'm in red zone and the frequency of red zone starts creating all these body image thoughts where I'm like, oh, I hate my body and it needs to change, then those thoughts lead me to believe, okay, now I need to punish myself. I need to deprive, I need to withhold pleasure from myself until it's fixed, right?
And then we'll be happy.
Exactly. But then that just is what keeps us eternally in red zone.
Correct.
That's what keeps us eternally in hell on earth. Whereas from this perspective, what you're teaching people is that as soon as you identify you're in red zone, that's the moment that you need to let life feel good. That's the moment that you need to search for the pleasure. Whereas red zone tells you that you shouldn't be allowed to feel pleasure.
Yes.
But the antidote is to invite in pleasure. The antidote is to invite in ease, invite in relaxation, and surrender into it rather than to fight against it, try to fix it, change it. And that's just so liberating. You know, when my red zone is telling me, you're not doing enough, you need to do more, you need to work harder, you need to make it feel worse. It's like, oh, this is red zone talking. Okay, no, I actually don't. I need to let it feel better and take better care of myself rather than punish myself, you know.
I love that. So let's talk about the quantum field for a little bit related to this, and then the frequencies, right? Because again, I love being a spiritual realist. We can be like, oh, let's do the law of attraction. But if you bring quantum physics with it, it's so freaking cool. So when you're in the red zone, right? Those frequencies, 1, 2, and 3, the quantum field responds to the frequencies you are emitting, right? They say we have an electromagnetic signature, and the quantum field is always sitting there with infinite possibilities of what frequency to be pinged at, and just waiting. It's in a place of like waiting. So when you're in red zone, you ping the quantum field with that frequency. If you ping it long enough and hard enough, and when you're red zone, right, you're very elevated, so it's really powerful emotion, then the quantum field becomes matter and attracts it back to you. The way the energy gets pinged eventually becomes matter and attracts it back to you. So the more you live in red zone, the more it's like turning on that channel, turning on that channel. So not only does it feel like crap in the moment when you're in red zone, you keep attracting more of it. So you know those days where you hit your toe when you wake up and then you're stuck in traffic and everything goes wrong? That's a red zone day. The whole quantum field is responding to you. You know when you're in love and everything, that the supermarket clerk is lovely to you and the traffic just opens up. That's a freaking green zone day.
Yeah.
And so learning to access that green zone isn't just an in the moment thing that actually changes your genes. Joe Dispenza actually says it changes our genetics, right? And it feels good and you get serotonin and dopamine, but you're actually influencing your future. So that's why this work is so important. And you're influencing your environment.
Yeah.
Right? So when I'm in the green zone, because emotions are contagious, you're likely to respond in kind and in kind and in kind. And so we create a world that lives, happen on earth.
Yes. And it's so contagious, right? Like if I'm all charged up about something and I'm sitting with someone like you, and in response to my charge, you just breathe. All of a sudden that reminds me that quantum field is possible for me too. And then as soon as I step into that, then I'm projecting a whole other future than I was a second ago when I was in red zone.
I love that. And when you are learning to do this work, often the world will trick you and challenge you a little bit by sending you lots of red zone triggers, right? Do you notice that? Because if you're used to having relationships in which people are in red zone and you suddenly start doing green zone, they're like, what the hell? And because we want to be with others in whatever frequency we're at. So if you're in the red zone, and I've suddenly left you, have you noticed that? Like people will try and then you're like, no, I'm gonna keep breathing. And then they try, and then especially the people closest to us, and then they eventually say the thing that you know is gonna get you into the red zone. So it takes a lot of patience and skill not to go and be seduced by red zone. Does that, it sounds like you resonated with that.
Yeah, well, when we think about it in terms of it's literally a different planet that we live on, like there's the red planet and there's the green planet.
Yes.
If someone's in red planet and they're used to you being on red planet with them, and then you go and live on green planet, they feel abandoned. And they're like, no, what do I need to do to get you back to red planet to live here with me? And I think it sometimes occurs as inauthentic, but there's a difference here. Like what you were saying before, people who are like, I don't feel anger, I don't feel anxiety.
I'm in the green zone.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about, somebody called it toxic positivity.
Ooh,
which I think is,
I love that.
Yeah. So we're not talking about toxic positivity. We're not saying that difficult experiences don't exist. We're saying that we're looking at those difficult experiences with eyes of love and choosing to open to them and surrender to them.
Exactly. So Marianne Williamson calls a miracle not an angel landing on your lap, but a shift in perception. A miracle is a shift in perception, right? That's what we're talking about. You are in the red zone. You see the world from the red zone. Everybody sucks in the red zone, by the way, including yourself, right? Just know that. That's a signal. And then you're like, oh, I'm in red zone. Let me breathe, shift my perception, shift my frequency to the green zone planet. You have now just created a miracle. Yeah. You have now just created a miracle.
Marianne for president, 2020. You know she's running, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say, like the toxic positivity, let's say you're practicing this work, right? And you go into the green zone and your partner isn't, do not tell them you're in the red zone. Do not tell them. Breathe, chill, relax. If somebody tells me, it's like when somebody tells me I was PMSing, don't you do it, right? So manage yourself. Like if everybody goes, well, now that I'm realizing what it's like to be in green zone, how do I manage my partner when they're in the red zone? Well, if you have green zone lenses on, you'll be like, oh, they're in the red zone. Oh, they're suffering right now. Yeah. But I don't need to be a part of it. So sweet pea, I'm gonna go have a cup of tea, I'll be back. Or you just open your heart to them, because in the green zone, you understand they're stuck in a distorted world. So you don't listen to when they say, well, you haven't loved me for 10 years. You're like, oh yeah, that's a red zone thought. Right? You understand they are in an illusion. You understand they're in a distortion. And then you have compassion and patience. Right.
Because the minute that you're like, oh no, you're in red zone, I have to fix you. You're in red zone.
Exactly.
Then you just have two people in red zone.
The moment we judge, we are in red zone.
Yeah. And the only way that you can really activate someone in the green zone is by being in it yourself.
Oh my God, you're so fast and so good. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
Amazing.
Well, clearly everybody needs
I need. I love the way you just caught yourself. Or why don't we say I can imagine a world in which most people live in the green zone would be a really amazing world.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I imagine that would feel really good to me.
Yeah, that would feel really good to live in a world in which everyone lives in green zone.
I love that you just cut this though, because I've been saying like the world, I've had some sort of judgment, but there's a difference, right? There's a difference between, so this is an important piece. One of the ways to rewire your brain into green zone, because we have to rewire our brain, right? So this is important for you guys to know, is through visualization. Right? And so the fastest way, one of the fastest ways to create something new is to visualize it, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined, right? They've done studies that if people imagine playing the piano, they will actually change that part of the brain as though they were actually playing it. So what Joe Dispenza talks about is our thoughts ping the quantum field and our emotions attract it back. So let's say I want what's something you really want, like right now, that you would really imagine would bring you to the green zone in your life?
Like a result.
Yeah.
I want time to camp.
Okay, great. So I want you to imagine, so one of your practices is as often as you can, certainly every morning when you wake up and at night, I want you to imagine yourself having, like in the space where you have time to camp. So what would that look like? I even see this salon. So I want you to think it, visualize it, and feel it. So take a moment to and everybody else, I want you to do the same thing, right? What do you really want? And then go along with Brandy and feel it and see it with as much emotion as you can. So what are you seeing and what are you feeling?
I'm feeling myself there, and it really does feel like I'm there. I feel like I'm outside in nature under a beautiful starry night with a campfire in front of me and my loved ones all around and bundled up, smelling the crisp, fresh air. And I feel that like washing over my body
the relaxation of that.
Great. And so now I want you to know to anchor this feeling. All right? Like let yourself like remember this feeling. Every time we anchor these feelings, we are rewiring our physiology. Great. So now open your eyes. So what Brandy just did, and maybe that you guys did, she did two really important things. We're back to present and future. In the present, her body completely shifted physiology, right? The chemicals you sent through your body were healing chemicals. Your genes started to change. You got into the relaxation response where all healing occurs, right? And she pinged the quantum field. So her electromagnetic signature just shifted to start creating more of that. Now, if she finishes this conversation with me, goes into her car, oh man, I'm never going to have time. Never, it's not going to happen. Oh my God, my life is too busy. Well, the quantum field can't respond. The quantum field needs to be accessed at that frequency a whole bunch, right? With a lot of power and discipline for it to actually manifest, right? It's energy becoming matter. Like that takes effort, devotion. Yeah. But if she keeps anchoring that frequency and imagining this and really practicing this, it'll come like that. You better take a picture of yourself doing that. So, right? So you're doing a simple thing like, oh, what's a guided visualization? Like, what's the big deal? It changes your physiology in the moment and for the future. So it's ginormous work.
Yeah. I love that. And how we feel is what communicates to the universe. The universe doesn't understand thoughts. So when we're letting ourselves feel what that would feel like you said, our body doesn't know the difference between imagining it and it actually happening. So we're showing our body that this is normal. This frequency is normal. This is home for us.
That's right.
We reside here in this frequency of relaxation.
That's right. Yeah. So be careful, right? When you do this, what most people do when they express desire is they do it. Like, let's say you want a partner and you want a new beloved person. And so you imagine this man or this woman, and then you're like, oh, but that will never happen to me. That immediately collapses that possibility. So that's what I do in the course too, is I have you look at what are your core beliefs about being happy. We all have core beliefs. We were talking about that before, about being happy. So you can do all the visualizations you want about the ideal outcome, but if you then collapse it by saying, well, that will never happen to me, or this is stupid, or I don't believe it, you cannot create it. So in order to do this work, you will have to look at what are your core beliefs around creating heaven on earth, around being happy. Because if you don't, they will find a way to put obstacles in your path. And so if you've been trying to do this work for a while and you aren't getting the life you want, I'll bet you $1 million is because you can't sustain happiness, actually. And so I talk about it's like a muscle. I teach you guys to develop a happiness muscle. That's all this work is about. Isn't that the coolest work in the world that I get to do? I know.
Yeah.
Because we all say we want to be happy. But that's not true. We actually have a lot of stories around happiness. Like what give me one of your stories around that you might have learned as a child around happiness or feeling good?
That if you are feeling really good and happy, then what is it? It's like, you're just this like, oh, well, good for you. You privileged little whatever. Like you just must have had things handed to you and you haven't had to work for anything. And like, oh, life just must be so easy for you. Do you know what it's like for the rest of us?
Yes, that one I resonate with so much. Like I have somebody that always talks about, they're just trust fund babies, right? They're just trust fund babies. Like, and the thing is, I grew up with money, a lot of money when I was a kid, and I had the most miserable childhood. So I have, thank God, let go of that story that money brings me any kind of happiness. Yeah. But yeah, like if you're happy, right, somehow that means someone is not. And that is the world of dualism, that only one person out of two can be happy. So they are in the red zone when they say that. So it's good to know, oh yeah, they have red zone stories around happiness, that not everybody can be happy.
Right. And I, in the past, have been like, oh, you're in red zone, okay, then I need to be in red zone too, because it's not fair for me to be in green zone when you're in red zone. So I have to meet you where you are, because otherwise I'm abandoning you and I should feel guilty about that.
Absolutely. And that's what I learned as a kid. Everybody, like the caregiver who raised me if I was happy, it was like an insult to her. I had to be depressed.
Yeah.
And I thought as a child that was the way I was going to love her the most.
Yeah.
Right? Like like we think that to be empathetic, to be compassionate is to join someone else's suffering. It's a big one, especially for healers, for those of us who do this work, for women. Like we have to join in the suffering in order to actually be healing, in order to be good human beings. I'm so glad you brought that.
Yeah. When really there's just now two people in a hole.
Exactly.
Right? It's like if you're walking along and somebody's like, help, I'm in a hole. And then you're like, oh, I feel so bad that you're in this hole. Here, let me jump down in there with you. It's like, you do what? Now you just have two people in a hole.
I love that metaphor. I haven't thought of that metaphor in a while. But instead, if you stay in the green zone, right, and you keep that frequency, it allows them when they want, when they're ready for it, right, to come through that frequency. Because remember something, if somebody's passionate about being in the red zone, and by the way, Joe Dispenza says the red zone frequency, the stress response is addictive. By the way, we are addicted to the red zone. So this is really important to give ourselves patience and compassion when we try to shift out. But let other people be what they need to be. Be the person, be the change, right? You want to see in the world, like Andy says. Yeah. And if people want what you have, great. But don't assume like, oh my God, I can't believe you're in red zone. You'd be so much better in the green zone. Maybe not. Yeah. Maybe they are supposed to be in the red zone another 2 months, a year, 10 years. It's not your responsibility to change that.
Yeah. Wow, that makes so much sense that we're addicted to red zone, because red zone comes with chemicals in our body, and chemicals are addictive.
Exactly. You said it. You said it.
But then that also means that we can get ourselves addicted to green zone.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And you know, it's weird. It's actually so much easier to be addicted to red zone. I so often, yesterday I was doing a live and I did a beautiful visualization, and somebody said, oh my God, why do I always forget how good this feels? And it's like, it's somehow we forget our core state of pleasure and goodness. We forget about it, being human beings. Oh, and I want to say something about, you talked about sexuality. When you look at sexuality through the red zone, it is impossible to want sex when you're in the red zone. You're supposed to be fighting a bear. You're not supposed to be lounging around in the cave wanting sex. So all the women who come to me, who live in that red zone, right, the superwomen, none of them want sex. Of course, so they feel guilty. Their partners are mad, right? And then when I explain, if you're in the red zone, you cannot have desire for sex. You're supposed to be fighting or fleeing. Then they go, oh my God, thank you. And then we learn to practice green zone, and then sensuality comes back online. So it's really powerful. So red zone also keeps women sexless or with lack of desire, which is millions upon millions of women.
Right. Or having sex when they don't want to, which just feels like which just is adding trauma to your body. Your trauma's not prepared for it.
Yeah.
We're eating from that stress response. We're exercising from that stress response. We're working from that, everything. And it's just,
it just hurts your body. It hurts your physiology. It hurts your mind. It hurts your spirit. It hurts everything. And so, so let's just take a breath right now and just like kind of check in as you guys have been listening. Like, can you just even now just take a breath and slow down? There's been a lot we've covered. I don't know if you want to look through messages or not. Yeah. Is there any questions we might answer before we complete?
Yeah, there's a quick question here from Ashley. When while practicing this every day, do you know that you're more in a place of obsessing instead of green world creating?
It's a really good question, because I know Brandy and I know me and I know other women like us who love our work. Like, so when Spirit tells me, when I have a new project coming online, like launching this course, right? I have pre-recorded 8 modules, videos, manuals. It has been an enormous amount of work. And when I'm open into the green zone, there's so much content that downloads through me. And it's often just as I'm about to go to sleep. Do you have that too? And so I'll have my phone next to me and I'll turn off the light, and then a new insight comes and I have to turn on the light, write the note, go back to sleep, turn on the light. But that's different, even though it might even look on the outside the same. That's different than my obsessing and thinking, and because it comes from fear. So this might be helpful. What was the name?
Ashley.
This might be a helpful discernment. Does your obsessive thinking come from fear, right? Is it constricted? Is it tight? Or does it come from like, oh my God, that's an amazing thought. Oh my God, that's an amazing insight. So if it comes from the green zone, it's going to feel good, even though sometimes it's a pain in the butt. Carl Jung said, the creative muse has no respect for the human body. Have you ever had that? Like when you are launching something new and you love it and it's creative and you're like, what the freak? It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Really? But one comes from fear, right? And it doesn't feel good. And one comes from inspiration. Tell me if that lands. Can you see if that lands for her?
Yeah, she said, got it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I really love that question because I talk about green zone being flow and more steady, but sometimes when I'm in a new project, it's like a torrent of life force, of source is moving through me. And sometimes it's not respectful to my humanity, right? Have you had that too?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you just did this show, this one-woman show, that I imagine took a lot of energy.
Yeah, it did. It did for sure. And again, it's just the discernment of, does this feel good? What is this coming from fear? Is this coming from love?
Yeah. And so red zone lens, right? It doesn't feel good. It comes from fear. It feels constricted. And the green zone lens. I love the planet. I've thought about green zone lenses and I've thought about channels like TV channels, but now you've brought a third one. It's the green zone planet. Right? It's the same. The thing about it is it's the same planet, but you shift perception and then suddenly everything becomes different. So for me, thinking about falling in love is the best way to talk green zone, right? Because the whole world, the birds are singing, the sun is shining, right? It's like a Disney freaking movie. But that is what green zone feels like. Yeah. And not just inside yourself, but then the world starts reflecting that to you.
Yeah, well, and everything, like it literally, when you're in that frequency, because I'm in love right now, right? And the whole like time doesn't make sense. Time doesn't work in the same way.
Can I tell you about time? Joe Dispenza says linear time only exists in the red zone. Because you know why? Because you're supposed to remember if yesterday you found a berry in that patch that was bad, or there was a lion hiding behind that tree, and now you have to remember for the next time you go out. Obsessive time is red zone. Yeah. When you are in the green zone, there's no time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another discernment.
For sure. And we're going to get kicked off here in just a couple minutes. So I want to make sure that you, and we had a question here, how can people get in touch with you?
Okay,
Someone
good.
was asking for your Instagram, but I don't know if that's the platform you most want
to
share.
My favorite thing is go to, so heavenonearthtoday.com has both the webinar in which I talk about how to navigate difficult emotions, and it's it's 45 minutes. I talk about the feel-good scale, how to work with emotions. I slow it down, and then I talk about the course, right? The course, it's launching this week, 8 modules. It's literally 20 years of my work about all of this, how to create heaven on earth for spiritual realists. So heavenonearthtoday.com. If you already know you want to buy the course, it's on that link as well. But find me on Facebook. The League of Angels is my group page. Don't you love that? Because we are a League of Angels all together, like holding hands and doing this work of creating heaven on earth, but in a spiritual realism way. So heavenonearthtoday.com and the League of Angels is my Facebook group.
And I swear by Isabelle's work. So if you even have a thought that this course might be valuable for you, just jump on it.
Yeah, and I'm going to have 3 Zoom calls, and I'm going to have a Facebook group, and I'm going to support you through the 8 modules. And I promise you that who you are 8 module now and 8 modules from now will be a completely different frequency human being. And you're going to see that in your life, like everywhere. It's so freaking cool, the stories that show up.
And if anybody wants for me to connect you directly to Isabelle, just send me a message and I'll send you her contact details.
Yes. And I love our purpleness. And you know, purple is the third eye, right? It's the chakra of the third eye. So I love that we are both open and seeing, right? Seeing what's beyond this human existence, where often the veil is so constricted, right? We don't see actually what the green zone actually is like. And so I hope certainly that people got a lot from this.
Oh, I'm sure they did. And it's giving us a little countdown here. I love that before this, I was like, well, Instagram will kick us off in an hour. And you were like, no, we won't be on that long. That's way too long. And then here we are.
Yes. So good.
All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I had so much fun, and hopefully you all got so much value out of this as well. feel free to message either of us or leave comments and let us know what you thought of today's live.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to be with you guys for an hour.